Hi, welcome. My name is Lily. I am a ceramicist from New Zealand, hence the weird accent. I hope you can understand me. I'm based now in London. I'm in my home at the moment, not my studio, so I'm surrounded by nice books and things. And today we're going to be making a bowl, so thank you for joining me. This is the type of thing we'll be making. Sorry about the funny light. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about myself and my work first, and then we'll get started. So I run a little ceramics company, I guess, called Mae Ceramics. This is some of my work. I do mostly functional things, so I really like the idea of making something beautiful that can be used, but also that can, just be enjoyed every day. So this is quite fun seeing examples of my work pop up. I do a lot of wheel throwing. So most of my work is made on the pottery wheel, but today we're going to be hand building because I'm at home, so we've got no pottery wheel to play with. But you can, so that's what we're going to be doing. What else? I've made work for Google Play for Android, for Ozone, which is a coffee roastery and cafe here. I've made work for restaurants and for shops. I don't know, I'm having a bit of a mind blank. I really should have written down what work I've done, but here we are. I've written down some things, but I'm sure I've kind of covered it. I moved to London in 2016, so I had started doing some stuff ceramics based in New Zealand. I went to art school there, and when I graduated I didn't really know what to do with myself after leaving this amazing place with loads of facilities and loads of teachers around to help you do whatever you want and go through concepts and stuff, and amazing classmates. Some of my best friend was from there, but after graduating I didn't know what to do with myself, so I went to a pottery night class, and the teacher there was a wheel thrower, so I spent some time learning how to do making pots on the wheel. So this is a bowl I made on the pottery wheel. In the background here, this is a teapot I made, and we'll go a little bit closer, and a coffee dripper, so they go together. So I was pretty bad when I started because I had no real understanding of clay. I never really did any hand building until years later after practicing how to throw on the wheel. So now here I am. I sort of relearned a few years into it, and now I really love hand building. I really enjoy the fact that you can kind of see all these marks on your work where your hands have been, or you can, you get a pot that's not perfectly round and it's quite satisfying as part of the pot. I don't think we need to talk too much more about it. Maybe a little bit about my studio. So I started when I moved to London. I was working part-time in a cafe, and I had a shared studio at the same time. So I worked quite a lot of hours trying to make pots and work in this coffee shop. And it wasn't until 2017 when I got quite a big commission for some bowls for a restaurant that I thought, it's time to quit. It's time to do this full time. So I left my job, and then I found myself a studio, which was awful actually. It was a really freezing cold. It was literally a garage. So that was my first studio, and then after that I have now moved to my current studio, which is a beautiful studio right on the River Thames here in London. So yeah, I feel very lucky. So I get to spend my days in there all the time, just by the river making pots. It's a pretty nice life. Yeah, I think that's about it. Maybe we could get started in making some pots. So what you'll need, if you want to make along with me, there's we're gonna use some clay, maybe I don't know, a handful of clay, maybe this much, a little bit more maybe. Depends what kind of size you want to make. I'm going to start with about this much, and it's kind of, you don't want it to be bigger than what you can hold with two hands, because it's going to be sort of, I don't know, it's going to be hard to work with. So we've got some clay here. Also going to use a potter's pin tool, or if you don't have a potter's pin, that's fine. Just anything sharp like a skewer or a fork will do. I've got a scalpel, but you can use any kind of sharpish knife. A paintbrush or old toothbrush will work fine as well. I've got some wooden knife tools. These are my favourite tools, to be honest. You can actually see how, maybe you can't see, I'm getting away with it. There's so much clay on my tools. I could have given them a clean before starting. Yeah, we're going to use some of these. If you don't have wooden knife tools, like a popsicle stick will be fine, or to be honest, just the back of your thumb or your back of your finger would be just fine. You also want to have some water. I'm not going to show you the water because it will just spill everywhere. But trust me, in there, water. A sponge, and another bowl or container for clay scraps. So I'm going to use this one that I showed you before. And if you're using a bowl, then just use, if you grab some plastic, it can be recycled plastic. Ideally, it will be recycled plastic. And that's going to just go on top of that bowl, and that's going to collect clay scraps so we don't waste anything. Also a little wooden board if you have it, so like a chopping board or I don't know, a piece of cardboard or something, just so that you can put your pot on it and you don't have to pick it up to move it around all the time. So if you are making with me, let's just wait a moment and so you can get all that stuff. I'm just going to have a little look through these comments that you guys are sending. Hi everyone, there's so many comments. Well, a lot of them are in Spanish, so sorry guys, I wish I could speak Spanish, but I don't. I'm just going to be a little bit distracted for a second while I read through. But hi everyone, it's so nice to have you here. It's so nice to be here. People from everywhere. Just going to see if there's any questions. Someone said I look young. Thank you. I'm 27. I'm going to go over this a little bit later, but someone said a recipe for cold ceramic and one for baking. I'm going to, I think that means, do we need to fire this clay? The clay that I'm using, yes, it does need to be fired, but what we're doing, you could do it with air dry clay. So that won't need to go in the kiln, and it won't need to be fired, but it won't be watertight. So if you are using air dry clay, that's just fine, but just be aware that it will just be for decoration. Don't try and put any kind of liquid in it or eat from it, because it will disintegrate, and that would be a real bummer. Ah, cool. Hi everyone, it's so nice. Okay, I'm going to stop being distracted by that for a minute, and I'll come back to it soon. So I'm going to just move my camera down a little bit so you can see. Okay, this is a good little area. So this is my ball of clay. I have got it straight from the bag. I'm just going to give it a bit of a squish. If you have worked with clay before and you know how to wedge clay or knead clay, then give it a knead. But if it's come straight from the bag, you probably don't need to. But this is just a way to get any air bubbles out of the clay. And ideally, don't fold your clay, because you don't want to add any air bubbles in. You just want to kind of push down on it. So we're going to start with a ball of clay. This is, I don't know, a big golf ball, I guess. This is my board. I've gone through all the other tools, so I'm just going to pop them aside. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This is, I don't know if you can see it, but this clay dust that is going to start appearing, you really want to try and keep that to a minimum, especially if you're working at home. So you don't want to breathe that in. So just have that damp sponge on hand to give it a bit of a wipe down as you work. So you're going to start with your ball of clay and just do a little thumbs up, and you're going to make a little clay mushroom with your thumb. Sorry, this is a funny angle. I'm trying to work out what's best. Maybe this way. So I've got my little clay mushroom here, and I want to push down until there's maybe this much gap, maybe a centimetre or so between my thumb on the inside and my finger. So I'm left-handed, so I'm using my left hand to handle the clay, and my right hand is going to support. But if you're right-handed, you'd obviously swap. So I'm just going to start pinching. So I'm doing this motion. I'm trying to work out, everything's reversed, it's a bit confusing. So I'm going to push like this, like a little pincer, and I'm going to move the clay around as I go. And I'm pinching the clay so it slowly is going to move upwards. So if you're pinching and the angle of your hand is out, then you're going to come up with something like this. So it's going to be a bit of a plate kind of shape. And if you kind of angle this way and sort of cradle your clay as you go, you'll end up with, I mean, this is a bit bigger, but a bowl rather than something flat. So it just depends what you are wanting to make. So I'm going to give a bit of a squish, and you just want to go evenly. You want the clay to be kind of distributed throughout the pot very evenly. So once you've done your initial pinch, then you will probably go over it again. Can you see this okay? Maybe if I... It's a really weird angle. Here we go. Another way you can do it if you find that hard is to put it on the board. But if you do this, you'll just have a flat base for the bottom, which is just fine. I think actually, when I made this one, it was flat on the bottom, so you can see it's not very glazed very well, but it's got a flatter base than this one, so they're a little bit different in profile. So this is a slow process, which is quite nice. If you're used to throwing on the wheel, which is a little bit more stressful, this is a really nice way to just slow down. I hope you can't hear those sirens in the background. I live on a main road, so it could be quite loud. Hope not. So just pinching around. So you want something that kind of looks like this. This is focused. This is what makeup YouTubers do. Doesn't really work. So you want it to be quite even in your pinching. And then once you've got there, honestly, just do that again. So you just want to move the clay upwards as much as possible. So again, I'm doing this movement with my fingers and I'm moving the clay around. I'm not moving my hand. It's such a nice way to kind of understand the clay and understand how it works, and you see all these kind of things appear. So I don't know if you can see, but there's some cracks up here which are appearing as I pinch because the surface of the clay is a little bit more dry, just because my hands pulling out the moisture from the clay, and it's quite warm here, so the water that's in the clay is going to start evaporating, but it's still very squishy. So you just want to be mindful of those cracks. You don't want them to open up too much. Once you've pinched around and you've got quite a light thing, maybe just place it on your board, and you can you can either just boop it down like that and you'll get a flat base, or you can I'm just kind of pressing down in here. You can see the comments are coming. Let me have a look. Oh, so someone's asked about when you pinch the clay and it starts to break. So I just kind of answered that, but what happens is you can just smooth it. So maybe I can do this. I'm just trying to sort of pat this down, compress that rim. And if that doesn't work, we can get our scalpel. So this is optional. This is the difference. So this one here, you can see the rim is all over the place because I didn't trim it at all when I was making it. This one I did trim, so we've got a flatter rim. So we're going to do that here. So you can either, if you don't want to trim it, you can just compress that rim, and that's going to make it strong. If you just keep pinching and it starts breaking, then you might end up with a crack that will manifest, and as it goes in the kiln, it may open up more into an actual crack, and then that would sadly mean the piece can't be used. So you can just compress the rim like this. So I'm pinching with one hand, and the other hand I'm just sort of swiping or sweeping my thumb on top to flatten it. So that's option one. Option two is to take your scalpel or your sharp knife, and I'm going to go in at kind of the lowest point. Make sure you don't cut yourself. Can you see? And you want to just, I'm doing this backwards so you can see, but it's I might have to turn it around so I can actually do it. You're just going to essentially cut the top off. So I am going to turn this around so I can do it. And this is Just gonna kind of make it quite neat. There we go. So this scrap I'm gonna pop in this bowl that I have. So I'm gonna kind of scrunch it up, pop it in. Just make sure you put some plastic or a damp towel or something over top. Otherwise the clay will be no use to us and we'll have to completely recycle it. But we want to reuse all of the clay that we can. So we're just going to go around and squish this clay again and essentially do that compression that I did before. Someone has asked, what kind of clay am I using? I'm using a stoneware clay. So this gets fired to, I'm just going to quickly say what I'm doing here. So I have compressed this rim again, but I just want to tidy it up with a sponge. And this sponge is only just a little bit damp. If you squeeze it, no water is going to come out. You don't want to make the clay too wet. You just want to just kind of clean it up a little bit. So the clay that I'm using is a stoneware clay, and that means that I fire it up to 1,265 degrees, which is really hot, and that vitrifies the clay. So this, I don't know if you can see, there's clay all over it, so that's maybe a little bit unhelpful, but here we go. This is the clay when it's finished. This is the same clay. It's amazing, the color change. So it goes all the way up to 1,265 degrees, and then it, at that temperature it vitrifies, which means it becomes watertight. So even if you didn't have a glaze on it, you could have water in it and it wouldn't leak, or it wouldn't absorb any of the water. But there are different types of clays. So I kind of mentioned earlier air dry clay. To be honest, I haven't really got any experience with air dry clay, so I can't tell you too much about it. But earthenware clay is a different type of clay. It's often red, so like terracotta pots are made from earthenware. And they are fired, I think, like maybe up to 1,100 degrees, and they will never become vitrified. They will start melting if you fire them any higher. But they're really useful for things like pot plants or things like that. Cool. So here we are. We've got a nice rim, a nice bowl, and now we're going to flip it over. So if you wanted, you could stop here, and that's quite a nice little bowl. And these pots, these little bowls, I mean, they're just tiny versions of this, but that's what I do. I just pinch them. It's funny lighting, sorry. I just pinch them, and then that's it. Then they get covered in glaze. But that's as simple as that. But this guy, I'm going to add a little foot ring to it, like this, which is quite nice. It just kind of elevates it a little bit. You can see it's like, I don't know, gives it a little bit of status, a little bit of refinement. So we're going to flip our bowl over. And to be honest, this is a little bit too damp. So you can see, I've made one from before. So here is, you can see how easily this moves. Whereas this one, if I squeeze it, it's not moving. And if I squeeze it too hard, it would probably crack. But I can still, if I put my fingernail in the back of it, it's going to mark. I wish you could see that. The focus on this is being a bit weird. Can you see if I mark it? That comes up. So what we're going to do, so I'm just going to switch this one out. We can work on this one a bit later. This one's a bit smaller. But we're going to just pop that aside and get a little bit more clay. Let's have a look. You can't use air-dried clay for edible things because it hasn't vitrified, it hasn't gone through the kiln, so the clay will just start breaking down essentially. Yeah, so anything with any moisture in it will, yeah, it's like if you made something out of mud outside and if you added moisture to it, it would just start seeping in. Same thing with air-dried clay. Thanks to someone who said Spanish comments are wondering what type of clay I use. So yeah, I just said that about stoneware. I'll do some more questions soon. So next step, I've just got a little bit more clay and you want to just squeeze it into a little tube shape. And then we're going to roll it into a coil. So I'm using my dominant hand again, and I'm just going to use like a wide hand like this and roll it. So I'm using my whole hand, I'm going from my fingers down to the base of my palm, and I'm moving from one side of the clay all the way to the other. That's a bit much. Let's go again. So depending on your pot, you want to choose this sort of shape of coil that you want, shape of foot ring. So for example, if we were doing something quite big like this guy, you know, this kind of foot ring is too small and it would fall over. So you'd want something a little wider for this. Like that. That seems more appropriate for that one. This one, it's a little bit too squishy still to add a foot ring to, but maybe once we finish this one, it might have dried a little bit more. So I'm going to make this a little bit thinner still because it's a bit thick for what we're doing. Let's have another look. Can you see okay, everyone? Let me know. Oh, someone's from Colombia. It's so nice. So we're gonna just pull that bit off, pinch it off. You can see okay. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. So that's kind of where we're starting. And as a reminder of what we're doing, we're gonna make it look like this. Unfortunately, the one that I put water in has a really good foot ring, but I can't show you. But just here it is from the profile. Looks quite nice. Here's this one as well. So once you've got your foot ring in place, your little coil, you're going to mark it with your potter's pin or any kind of sharp. You could use the end of your sharp tool. We're going to mark here around the outside, sorry, around the inside of it, and around the outside here. And we're going to take it off, pop it aside, and I hope you can see where I've marked. So you can take your pin tool, or if you have a fork, I have a special tool for this. It's a rib, can you see it's got little spikes on the top? I'm going to use that too. We're scoring this. So if you're using your pin tool, you can just do some scoring like this, but I'm going to use this because it's a lot quicker. Can you see? I think so. We're going to do the same with this guy. So we're just going to squish it together so you have a little ring. And then choose the side that just, I don't know, looks the ugliest as the bottom. So we're going to use this one. And we're going to do the same here. Again, if you are just using this or your fork, it's just the same thing. Don't go too deep, it's just the surface. Just want to scratch the surface so that it has something to grip to. And then we're going to finally bring our water in and your paintbrush. And you can choose either you put the water on here or on here. It's just, it doesn't matter. You want to add some water around where you've scored. And we're going to press that on. So I'm just going to push around and make sure it's joined well to begin with. It looks quite big for that little pot, but we're going to refine it a little bit. So now I'm going to use the back of my knife tool, this bit here, which is essentially the same as your thumb. So if you don't have a knife tool, you can just use the back of your thumb and do this. But I prefer this. So we're going to bring the clay from this foot ring that we've just added into the clay. And you want to, you can see this where this is the join, you just want to seal that up. So this is where I've just done, and that's where I haven't done. And you want to just press it in and join them. Doesn't matter if it looks ugly to begin with, because we're going to refine it a little bit more. I find this so soothing. It's such a nice way to spend time. These pots are they're quite kind of Japanesey. I think I'm quite influenced by Japanese pots, especially this type. Little sake bowls, you know. They're so sweet. And especially when I usually make things from the wheel and things that are super refined, it's a really nice way, I think, for me to just kind of chill out and stop being such a perfectionist. Because I love these pots when they come out of the kiln. So I've gone all the way around. You can see that that's joined now. And now we're going to do the same on the inside. So this is a little bit more fiddly, but you know, it's quite important to do. You just want to really make sure it's joined well. Because this is an important join, it's the only join on this wee pot. I'm just having a look at your comments as I'm going. It's so nice to have you all. Thank you for being here. It's so fun. I was quite nervous before we started, but now, I don't know, it's like I'm with some friends. Cool. So that's done. Now we're going to refine it a little bit. So I quite like to use my thumb, just the pad of my thumb here, but you can use any tool that you like. This is just getting rid of any kind of big lumps of clay, just kind of smushing them in. Because this this bowl is hardened for a bit, I made it about 2 hours ago, so it's not you know, it's not super hard yet, but it is summer here. It's quite warm today, so it has dried quite quickly. And just do the same on the inside, just get rid of any big bits. And then I'm just going to get a sponge, a smaller one, and I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So again, you don't want too much water. If you use too much, you're just going to make your pot quite weak. You just really want to get rid of these marks. And on the inside here, again, this is quite fiddly, but I'm going to go in and just kind of squish and spin. I'm really trying to get into this, I don't know if you can see in here, there's kind of a big gouge mark when I was joining them, so I really want to get in there and smooth that. Cool. So that's quite nice, and now now it's joined, I can kind of pinch it like we did with the body of the pot to make it sit a little bit taller or a little bit wider or whatever you fancy. So I'm making mine a little bit taller. And you can see how it looks by putting it on your board and just having a little peek. But I love that. Look at that. It's so sweet. If it's not flat, just kind of very gently just kind of bop it on your board, and that's going to flatten this out quite nicely. That little gouge marker is being pesky. Don't get in there again. Here we go. So that's essentially it. Again, you could stop here if you wanted, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to come in here, finish this rim off a little bit better. And then, like this one, I'm just going to put some marks in it. I don't know what I'll do yet. Should I do marks like this, or should I do something different? I don't know. We'll see. So this sponge, just because it's a little bit bigger, I'm able to get a bigger surface area of clay kind of tidied up. But again, don't want much water on it at all. I'll do the inside as well. There we go. So maybe I'll do similar to this, but I'm going to do full stripes. They won't be, oh, no, I like this one. I'm going to do the same as this one. This is my whole thing. I'm very indecisive. And I don't like glazing because I have maybe 10 different glaze options to choose from, and I don't like making a decision, especially because I kind of grow quite attached to pots, and I feel like sometimes I can ruin them. To begin with, I'm just going to kind of clean up this area so that it doesn't get overwhelming. So again, just that damp sponge. Get rid of these kind of crumbs of clay. We can pop them in the bowl as well. I mean, to be honest, I'm going to make a whole lot more now, but it's just nice to kind of keep on top of the mess. So, we've got our nice pot, and we hopefully won't destroy it by doing this. So this tool is I didn't tell you that you needed one of these, but it's a little loop tool that it's quite fine. It's for a technique called sgraffito, where you kind of carve illustrations or marks into your clay. But you very much could use the end of this tool, your knife tool, or your pin tool. Honestly, anything you can think of, you can use to texture your clay. There's a lot of potters who use like leaves from outside, and they squish them into their clay, and then you get kind of the relief of the leaf on the surface of the pot. But I'm just going to do these little dashes because I think they're quite sweet. So the first one's always a little bit scary. And again, I'm doing this backwards, so it's a little bit, feels a little bit funky. While I'm doing this, do you have any questions? Is ceramic safe to use by children? Yeah, definitely. I mean, don't eat it. If your child's at a phase in their life when they're just eating loads of things and putting things in their mouth, maybe not. But when they're a little bit older, definitely. It's yeah, I very much recommend it for kids. It's a very nice way to spend time with clay and with your hands, and it's a nice way to teach them to make either something functional or something, I don't know, to express themselves, definitely. Can we make ceramic pots for plants? Definitely. I don't have any planters in here that I can show you, but lots of my work is planter based. So you just have to think about what you would like for a planter. So if you want to plant your pot, your plant inside the pot, you maybe just want to put a little hole in here so that you can drain any water. But if you have the plant in a pot already, a little plastic pot, then you can just pop the whole thing inside the planter. Someone said Instagram, and I'm going to answer yes, I'm on Instagram. My handle is Mae, M-A-E, Ceramics. So if you want to follow me, I'll say hi over there. And you can see lots of my other work where you'll see that it's predominantly wheel thrown. I wonder if some Insta followers are here. I hope that this scoring isn't too boring, everyone. We can, how long have we been? What's the time? Oh my God, we've only got 15 minutes left. I thought we'd had time for another whole pot, so maybe I'll just do this and then we can, I can answer some more questions if you have any. Fire them through. I know that I've definitely missed questions because they're scrolling up and I'm not really looking at them, so feel free to ask again if I've missed them, and hopefully I can answer them. Oh, thank you so much for translating this question. There's a question in Spanish about whether you can fire it in a home oven without having a problem of the pot cracking over time. I think that there are some clays that you can fire at home, but there's clay, if you want to use it for domestic wear, so for eating from or drinking from, then you will need to use ceramic. So ceramic is different from clay because it goes through a process called quartz conversion, which is quite boring, but essentially at about 600 degrees Celsius, it changes chemical composition. So it becomes food safe at a much higher temperature than home ovens can get. So if you if you do want to make something that is functional, then I would suggest finding a local potter or a pottery club where you can have your work fired, and then we can and then you can use it at home. I think I just missed someone's question. Oh yeah, here we go. Is it easy to get started in ceramics? That depends. If you just want to be a hobbyist, then no, it's quite easy. There's loads of pottery classes around. Pottery clubs are really good. That's where I learned initially. I went once a week to a class. Guys, I've finished carving finally. Here we go. So I don't have my stamp here, but if I did, I'd just pop it on the bottom. And I would wait. So I think you can see here, there's kind of some little bits of clay that are just hanging out on the surface. And I just would wait for the pot to dry before I got rid of them. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of blend it in with the clay, and it ends up with quite a bumpy surface. So here we go. That's the pot. Here's my face again. Hi. I feel a little bit vulnerable now that the pots aren't around. Let's try and angle it. I'll sit back. Maybe not. Yeah, so there's lots of pottery clubs around where you can join and get started there, and you don't have to commit loads of money or loads of time to it just to start learning. But if you want to start a proper business from it, then I mean, like anything, it's not super easy. You have to spend loads of time and energy and money in getting it sorted, getting everything that you need. But honestly, I think it's worth it. I love being a potter. It's my favourite thing. My favourite things in life are being an auntie and being a potter. So, I don't know, that's pretty high praise for being a potter. Are there any other questions that I've missed? Feel free to send them through again. Different types of ceramics. Someone said, what are different types of ceramics? I kind of said that before, but maybe I'll go into a little bit more detail. So I use stoneware clay, which is really good for functional wear. So if you're using plates or cups, things like that, they're really hardy and they last a really long time. You can see my clay has, well, you can't see with this, these little tiny freckles in here. Maybe a different color one. The green one, maybe? Can you see these little freckles that have come through? That's called grog, and that's added to the clay. But stoneware clays, not all of them have these visible freckles, but a lot of them do have grog, which is like just sand and other bits of clay kind of ground up, and it makes for a really strong clay when it's fired and when it's shrunk, and it becomes quite hardy. So that's stoneware. That's why I use stoneware, because I make functional things, and I love making functional things because I find that I like beautiful things, but I also like using stuff and having a use for a thing. But so there's also terracotta or earthenware, which is a lower fired clay, and that is good for if you haven't got access to a kiln that goes really high, then that's really good. But it's also good for things like planters, things like vases, kind of if it's glazed. Loads of things. I'm drawing a blank right now. There's also porcelain, which if you think of really fine china, it's really white, super white, and sometimes translucent. So that's used for quite fine wear. Also can be used for like light lampshades and stuff, because it's translucent, you can see through it. But that's quite hardy as well. It gets fired quite high. And then there's air-dried clay, which I kind of talked about, but I don't actually know that much about it, so I don't know. Don't ask me too much about that. Any other questions? Let's see. Can you make ceramics without burning them? I think that's the kiln thing again. I would suggest finding a kiln if you want to make functional things, but if not, there's definitely types of clay that you can use. That doesn't have to go in the kiln. I think I said at the start, but just in case people have joined later, my work goes up to 1265 degrees Celsius, which is so hot. It's like you can't even imagine that kind of heat. But it's like white hot. If you peek inside the kiln when it's at that temperature, it's actually white, and that's where these glazes are melting. Yeah, so that kind of heat makes for a really hard thing. Just going to go through and see if there's any more questions that I haven't answered. So many people are saying hi, it's so nice. Hi everyone. Probably with this guy, I don't think I've said this, but this guy I'm gonna take back to my studio and I'll fire it. And I'll have a really hard time choosing what glaze because it's my life, it's what I always struggle with, but I'm quite into this green glaze at the moment. This pot, by the way, this is my finished one that I was struggling to show you before. The glaze is actually not reflecting loads at the moment, so that's nice. Those are the dashes that I've just done in my little one that I've shown you. But can we go back to my camera? Thank you. This one here, I made my fingerprints really visible, and I kind of pressed quite hard to get that texture. But again, if you didn't want that, you could. This is a super reflecty one. Go maybe over here. You can kind of see it's a little bit smoother compared to this one. So the beauty of these pinch pots is that you can just put whatever texture you fancy on. Oh, thanks for all the comments in Spanish. I'm sorry I can't read them. I've told myself I was going to learn Spanish so many times and I haven't managed to do it. There's still time. What do you do when you're using pinching technique and the clay starts to break? Oh, so when it starts to break, I kind of went over that at the start, but I just kind of smooth the rim, and that's quite important to do. So maybe I can see if these ones that I did before, can you kind of see the rim? You kind of can't, it's not focusing. Anyway, you have to compress the rim. If it starts to break too much, because it's dry, you'll be able to feel it's dry, then you can add a little tiny bit of water onto your finger and just smooth it like this. Too much and you're going to make the clay quite weak. So it's a balancing act that you kind of learn through doing it heaps, but yeah, that's what you do. You don't want that crack to open up and go from just being a surface crack to actually being structural, because it's a bummer. I'll tell you what, there's nothing worse than when you get your pot out of the kiln and you didn't realize there was a little crack in it until after it's been finished fired and it's gone up to stoneware temperatures and there's a big old crack in the side. It's not much worse. There's a lot of worse things in the world, but that is a pretty bad feeling. Someone said, at which point do you paint your ceramics? So if you're going to paint them, there's two different types of surface decoration, I guess. So these ones have been just glazed. So I put this guy will go to my studio and it goes through two firings. So the first firing is called a bisque firing, and that goes up to 1,000 degrees. And that will draw out all the moisture, but it will still be really porous. And then you apply glaze onto that. So glaze is just a layer essentially of glass that sits on top of the ceramic. So you can see here that this bit is unglazed. Same with this, there's no glaze on it because glaze melts in the kiln and it turns into essentially glass, and that's just a layer on top. But if you wanted to paint designs, you could do it now. So some of my work, I don't think I included any photos, but I have a customer who orders loads of banana cups, and I just paint heaps of bananas all over these cups that I make for her. And and they get done at this stage. So this is called leather hard, and I use a type of paint called slip. And slip is essentially just clay and water and color pigment. So you could do it now if you wanted to do designs. Otherwise, you do it after it's first firing, when you put glaze on top. What materials do you use to paint your ceramic works? So again, yeah, it's the same thing. So slip and glaze. There's other types of things that you can use, but yeah, that's mostly what I do. You can use this thing called underglaze. So it's a special type of glaze that you can apply at any stage, and it will adhere to the side of your pot. I think I've kind of answered most of the questions here. Do I make my glaze or buy it? A bit of both. So mostly I make my own glazes, but there's some that like this one I don't use very often. So I haven't made a glaze the same color as this. So this is just one that I buy, but I prefer to make them. Yeah, but the clay I just buy. I don't make or blend any clay. Some people do. If anyone has any more questions, then I'll quickly answer them. But I think that we can wrap up soon. I'll just here we look. No more comments just yet, so hopefully I haven't missed any. If I have missed your question, feel free to get in contact with me. I'm on Instagram at Mae, M-A-E, .ceramics. Facebook is the same, Mae.ceramics. My website is maeceramics.com. Yeah, someone's just asked, just quickly popped in, can I see some more of your work? Definitely, but it's on all of those things. So I haven't prepared any more pictures on here. So yeah, you'll be able to see my work online at those places. Or Domestika has just put a link to those if you'd like to join me over there. Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I can't believe how many questions and people there have been. It's been great. And I can't believe how fast this has gone. Who knew? Usually I'm just working by myself in my studio and I get lost in my own world. So I guess it takes half an hour or 45 minutes to make a pinch pot. Who knew? Yeah, thank you for joining me, and I hope that I will see you soon. Bye, guys.
La idea es como algo muy frágil.
Se me fue la hebra.
I'm going to show you some examples. This is what we've got behind me.
¿Qué más preguntas tengo por aquí? ¿Cómo descubriste que lo tuyo